Hello, everybody. My name is Martin Loffers. I'm the Chief Trend Watcher of Supply Chain Media. I'm also the Editor-in-Chief of Supply Chain Movement, a European quarterly magazine, still in print, but also online, and a huge LinkedIn group. I think over 60,000 members all over the world. And I'm also the architect of the SCM IT Supermap Europe. I will talk about it later. In the next 30 minutes in this live webinar, we're going to talk about smarter freight from procurement to proof of delivery. Yes, we'll talk about AI. We'll talk about AI in transportation, that kind of environment. And with me, I have an expert on that matter. He's working at Trimble, Bernard Schmaldienst. Welcome.
Welcome. Pleasure to be with you.
Yeah, so a bit of your background before we delve into the subject matter. So you have been working in the 3PL environment, but also a lot of the digitalization in the last decades. So what makes you tick, and what do you think of these current times?
Yeah, it's more exciting and faster than ever before. Yes, you rightfully mentioned I've been part of big 3PLs. I've been on many digitalization journeys on the TMS frontier, on many other frontiers before I joined Transporeon, and now Trimble. And now what we see is we see the craziest acceleration of our time. And that is not just a buzz or something. With the capabilities of AI, all our environments just change way faster than ever before. So it's really exciting to be in there. There might be a small portion of scare in there, but the excitement is the dominant theme because we can do so much new stuff right now.
Yeah. So we'll talk about later. You have done a survey about all this, both on the cargo owners and on the shipper side, or on the carrier side, sorry. So we'll talk about later. So we have some things to discuss. A few household matters. This webinar is being recorded right now. It will be made available on YouTube, so you can watch it afterwards. The PDF of the presentation will be available, downloadable on our website. The audience is on mute, so you can use the chat functionality, but you can also ask questions through us. And please use the Q&A functionality. That's one below, the Q&A text bubbles, the small text bubbles. Use this functionality to ask questions for Bernard and for me. And if these questions are in line of our conversation, I will ask them immediately. If not, we have a Q&A at the end. And if you still want to talk more with us, so I will have some time here. Bernard and I will be sitting down in the virtual lounge, so you can join us in kind of Zoom meeting, and then you can have a conversation with us afterwards. All right. As of this point, we put off our camera, so you can enlarge your screen, so have a better view on your presentation. So Bernard, you can also put off your screen, and then you can enlarge your screen. All right. So let's talk about what's happening into the world. So this is an overview, and I think the next 2 days, this overview about the last quarters, the second quarter of this year will be available. What you see here is now, these are the topic CEOs of Fortune 500 companies, mainly US companies, are talking about in their quarterly earning calls. So these are the things they discuss in the financial matters, etc. Interesting thing is, supply chain has been on this chart ever since the pandemic. So basically, the more to the right, the more being mentioned and the more important it is, the higher up. So supply chain has been mentioned ever since. And in red, you see the more risk-related items. Geopolitics, uncertainty is an important thing. And in yellow, yes, CEOs talk about AI and all kinds of things. Physical AI, AI tools, agentic AI. So that these are the things mentioned by CEOs of large companies, especially in the US, but also in the Western world. Bernard, if you look at this, what strikes you the most if you look at this kind of phrases?
Yeah, it strikes me how consistent the theme seems to be across the board. And also, you just mentioned the Q2 numbers, and those will hit very soon. I would be very much surprised if geopolitics in the broadest sense and also AI don't make it into the second quarter as well. The different variations of AI also showcase to me, and that's very interesting, the different aspects that the AI transformation that we are all in now carries. So that really is a broad diversity, and this happens all on top of a big theme of uncertainty coming from trade tensions, geopolitics, and that makes up a very interesting combination of those. This also offers opportunities. There is no downside without an upside. So the people who adjust to those themes of uncertainty and being able to react quickly, they'll come up as the winners of the future again.
And you know, last week I read an article about, you know, in the US, when you want to build a new factory or warehouse, you are competing against data centers. So there's not enough data in the grid. So do you also have this kind of feeling in Europe, you know, that data centers are popping up everywhere and are competing to warehouses and factories, and maybe they are competing with the supply chain, although we need data centers for AI?
Yeah, overall construction industry can't complain about the lack of demand. Yeah, where this comes from is very, very different. On a global scale, and that also includes Europe, this year the top 6 hyperscalers will invest 700 billion US dollar just in 1 year on building data centers. That's a crazy amount of money that is spent. And of course, this competes with building new apartments, building new warehouses, building new infrastructure, because it all is served by the same construction companies at the end of the day, but different verticals. But this is real. This creates a bottleneck on that infrastructure side.
Yeah, all right. So, you know, we'll talk about it later more. You know, first, like I mentioned, I'm the architect of this SCM IT software map. We have been publishing since 2011 already. Basically, you know, this is an overview of established software vendors and supply chain in Europe. So it's based on evidence of what they have implemented overall in Europe. And you see different kind of lines. You see in black ERP, you see WMS, TMS, SNLP, and you name it. So basically, you know, all the household names are on there. Of course, Trimble is also in there. And, you know, maybe some of you don't know Trimble that good enough, but, you know, Transporeon is part of Trimble. So that's the one thing. And you see different kind of subway lines, and we'll talk about transportation later on. So being part of Trimble now, you know, what is your notion since the acquisition of Transporeon by Trimble?
We really had a good run, also in the sense of what we could do. We could significantly, vice versa, expand our geographical scope, where Trimble primarily operated or was exceptionally strong in North America, and the Transporeon part for transportation and logistics was exceptionally strong in Europe in a relative comparison. So geographically, that complemented very, very well. Also from a solution scope, Transporeon, we primarily served the network part of shipper transportation management and the associated network solution, versus Trimble is the #1 carrier TMS vendor for asset-based carriers in North America. So that really complemented each other well from a solution scope, and we could really, together we can now serve both markets on the shipper and carrier side now significantly better, because we really carry the DNA from those two operating modes now.
All right, before we go further a bit about Trimble and also about your solution, and then we go talk about AI. This is also what I created last year. Basically, why I've created this is, you know, a lot of, especially the manufacturing, wholesale, and retail companies, so the cargo owners, have a whole plethora of applications to manage the end-to-end supply chain, and they don't have their own overview of what they have as a landscape internally. They are relying on their IT department too much, whereas hopefully if they are owner of their supply chain business, they could decide what kind of software they would like to use, etc. Basically, they can fill out this form and create their own company IT portfolio overview. What kind of system are we using? What should be replaced, etc. And this helps also for your roadmap for further digitalization and the use of AI. I highlighted here the applications related to Trimble. So you see, it's a rough overview. It's probably more, but you see roughly the main applications being serviced by Trimble. Do you see any needs to extend this, or is this basically, you know, the core of your transportation portfolio?
We really continue to focus primarily on what you flag here as the execution layer or operational planning layer. We will continue to focus on yard, TMS, and the delivery piece. We will always offer the associated business intelligence and analytics layer from a solution coverage perspective. What we continue to see is those boxes tend to converge to their next to neighbors more often. So where does purchase order management begin versus transportation? The same is true for the sales order management. So on the edges, the boxes overlap a little bit more now than ever, because what is also important with the great variety that the supply chain management solution portfolio offers, you still don't want to have like 300 more applications that don't talk to each other, but the connectivity across those layers is just so crucial that it's important that this overlap happens more and more.
And then what about the green part, the sustainability part? You know, carbon calculation in the Scope 3 environment. Is it already ingrained within your applications, or is it still an add-on?
We have it fully incorporated into our portfolio. So the moment you run a transport via us, we will always calculate the associated emissions and then provide you the baseline for all broader combined reporting associated with that. What we are not doing ourselves anymore, but partners, that we try to be like that we focus on the ESG reporting by itself. So all our transports are fully compliant to serve all the ESG reporting requirements, but we don't want to be the real ESG reporting compliance vendor. There are other good companies out there. This is fine, but we will always provide the baseline data. So the moment you choose us, you're well served in that regard. That you have the certainty it will cover the sustainability piece.
Getting back to Transporeon, you're part of Trimble now, and maybe you can highlight quickly a few things about Transporeon.
Yes. So as mentioned, we're primarily in this execution space where we now connect more than 1,500 shipper companies with more than 200,000 carriers in our network. Very important. Transportation is a multiplayer game, as I always say. Doing transportation alone is just not fun. So it's very important to be very well connected to your network, to have optionality, and to operate on network processes that are highly automated. And that brings us to booking more than 30 million time slots per year and operating more than 31 million transports per year in more than 100 countries of the world. We are 100% subsidiary of Trimble, and we do this with a full team of 1,400 colleagues, only the Transporeon.
And if you look, you talk about cargo givers. So there are, the cargo owners or the shippers on one side, and the cargo takers. Those are the carriers, the transport companies. So is it mainly full trucks, or is it LTL? What was your main focus of this matching of cargo?
Yeah, the heart of our business continues to be FTL, where we support all the auxiliary LTL groupage processes, but it's still primarily road. We offer all the multimodal features, but then typically you choose us also for multimodality if the overland continental distribution piece is very relevant to your business. And then we have the complementary products to serve all your multimodal needs that, of course, come along with that. The same is true while we're doing primarily FTL up to final DC. Of course, we support you with partners or our own solutions to do the final last mile distribution system. But the core is really like FTL, LTL.
So basically, you mentioned already before, you're focusing on the supply chain execution, logistics, the day-to-day operations. In all, do you think, is this the right environment to apply AI? And we'll talk about AI specifically, especially in that environment.
I'm very bullish on AI, so I would claim immediately that all areas are good areas to focus AI on, because we got so many new interesting use cases associated with that. For the execution area specifically, I think a ton of use cases come just from the fact that within execution, the underlying system landscape end-to-end that both carriers and shippers apply is very often rather diverse. Like you need to log into that portal, you we run comms via email, you run this via chat. So this is where AI can really factor in very, very well. Plus, we now open up the threshold of transactions where it makes sense to automate. Very often, historically, we have chosen the high volume cases where we put in the most automation efforts. And with the current availability of AI technology, this is just, the best time in the world to also apply this to less frequent use cases, because we now got the means to be able to do this more efficient, simpler, and quicker than ever before.
All right. If you look at, you already mentioned you have different kind of solutions and you have different kind of applications needed to do this day-to-day action. Talk about some solutions in specific, and maybe to the left you see the core, and maybe you can explain what kind of solutions there are out there, serviced by Transporeon, and how do you find them useful and applicable for AI?
Yeah, in a modular manner, we offer solutions across the entire transportation chain. That starts with trying to get analytics or market intelligence of like, what are rates going to look like? That provides very often the baseline for planning and strategic choices that you make, but it also supports your underlying buying and selling decisions. Mm-hmm. So in the chain, we start with market intelligence and everything that is associated to buying or selling freight, depending on whether you're a load giver or a load taker in that logic. So in freight procurement and spot procurement specifically, we have a long automation track. I'll give a customer showcase just a little bit later, but we were leading with statistical and mathematical AI and also AI features to really fully automate the buying and selling journey, specifically for spot loads, where it's rather simple. Here, the historical process was you went for bid collection. So you had the demand for a spot transport, like I need a truck from A to B on Friday this week. What you did is you basically sent this out to your selected pool of carriers and asked them to submit a quote on this. So you collected quotes and bids based on that transport. That's still the traditional way of doing things, and it's still a majority scheme. A lot of companies still operate there. In power lanes and lanes where you have a high optionality, you can automate that process to the benefit of both sides, where basically you just shoot it out and start based on the market intelligence that you have. You don't ask, give me a price for A to B, but based on our analytics, a good market price for this lane A to B would be 700 euro right now. And then you basically start a reverse auction. That has the benefit, of course, that you get quotes faster and at the market price, but also on the carrier side. The moment you bid now and you secure the load, in the moment you're certain that you will get assigned for this specific transport. The time gap in between before that was a big bottleneck in that. So freight marketplace all around buying and selling freight, awesome use case to apply AI. And then just a little bit quicker, that will not be too long here. Planning and execution.
But the freight marketplace, sorry to interrupt, but this reminds me, more and more people, consumers, are also booking hotels that way. They go through the websites and then let AI agent browse through it, also with flight tickets. You can train your AI agent, book the next flight and see if it will be cheaper in the next days before I hit the button, and then I will make sure that I have my flight ticket. So that's something in the consumer world, and that will go also in the B2B world in logistics.
Correct. Yeah, and in the consumer world, you very often work with implicit preferences, right? You fully analyze the behavior. In a B2B company environment, you very often, you still want those inputs from how you implicitly behave, but very often you want to make them explicit, like, why do you take a buying decision in the exact same manner that you do this? Like, what is your strategy right now? It makes a difference whether you have a big flexibility on the exact timing of your transport and you really want this more cost efficient, versus you have a very narrow time frame for that specific transport and you need it quick. That's a totally different optimization and process that you would run. And the modern systems just support you in basically having your references executed very well in an automated manner. So spot procurement is simple and easy.
Okay. Yep. Move on. Yeah, please.
Yeah, planning and execution, that's the historical bread and butter from us. So this is all about running your day-to-day transport management operations on top of a strong visibility network. Dock and yard. So we are not only executing transports, but of course our trucks or other assets, they hit nodes in the transportation network. So you need all the corresponding activities there. Trucks arrive at the yard, time slots need to be booked. Digital transport documents, that's partially legislation driven with the European legislation, but it's also a sincere effort now that we see happening to get rid of the paper across the chain. So that is also a big theme for us right now. And at the end of the day, we complement the journey with someone wants money, like someone wants to get paid, and we want to be able to support everyone to have invoices verified and paid in the fastest manner with freight audit.
Yeah. All right, getting back to the dockyard, I still think it's still the blind spot between the warehouse and transportation. So I think there's still a lot to gain, make the smooth connection between your transportation and your warehouse, either inbound or outbound. So I think, we still have a lot to gain in dock and yard management and to automate it, get rid of the paper, but also make it more smoothly, the planning that the trucks don't have to wait to be unloaded or loaded, that kind of stuff. Do you see a lot of traction in that area?
Yes, the short answer is yes. Where to be more specific, the yard for a very long time was the big supply chain black hole, like warehouse management, tons of vendors, good solution coverage, similar on the TMS side. But then what connected those two worlds, the yard, felt for many, many years underserved in that regard, where a ton of those efficiency gains are still in there. If we think about arrivals, that is all nice. If we think about visibility, we very often think about estimated time of arrival. This is the time when the truck hits my yard. What is equally important is to give an estimate on the estimated time of departure, because you want to know when your truck is available again. And this can only be served by connecting the yard solutions also with the WMS activities, and by having something that is closer to a digital twin of your yard where you know your operations. And just to give the order of magnitude, there have been some studies done. We're all talking about this driver shortage in Europe, North America, and the world. If we would give back 30 minutes, so 30 minutes to every truck in the world, most likely all the driver shortages would have been removed immediately without adding a single driver. And this is just doable. Like if you have yard turnaround times of 2 hours and switch it to 90 minutes, getting from 90 to 60, all depending, of course, on your loading times. This is all doable, and by just giving back that capacity, we can ensure that a truck does what it is always supposed to be. It's basically driving and not standing.
Interesting. I do believe. I didn't know this kind of magnitude, and that we can solve the driver shortage in totally different ways, and that this might be a good way to address it. Here to the left on the you see in the middle agentic AI and network and data. So why you put data in there? A lot of people are thinking, you have to do data cleansing, and we don't have the right data. So what's your take on that?
Yeah, in transportation, we need to ensure that all the participants in the transport share the same amount of data and setup. Plus, transportation doesn't work standalone. So every customer and partner has a right to basically get their data in an easy way out of those processes again. Data is also the glue to connect solutions. Like, just imagine you realize a certain carrier just shows a bad performance on a certain lane all the time on your contract loads. Maybe for your next procurement activity, you just want to downgrade that carrier specifically, or also the other way around. If certain carriers always quote very competitive on your spot quotes, but you haven't included them in their latest tender, it should be a signal to do this. And the network and data layer brings all those insights together. It makes this data actionable across the processes end to end. And it's a key theme. It A, ensures the data quality, and it B, ensures that they are actionable insights and not some, not a data graveyard where nothing is done with but a ton of information.
You know, when I look at 3PL companies, they're sitting on tons of data. In my opinion, they're underusing this kind of data. You know, why don't they distillate more trends out of it? What's happening in the warehouse and transportation, and give back this insight from their data to their customers, the shippers, the cargo owners. So in that sense, I think there's a lot of underuse of data, especially in logistics. On the other hand, they say, okay, but my data is not good enough to apply AI.
Yeah, that's a good call out. Very often the topic is, hey, this is all good and nice with all these AI solutions, but we really need good data for AI, because AI needs good context, and good context is primarily given by applying the right data at the right granularity at the right point in time. I think the good news here for data is, as long as you can connect something, you have a better chance of that something to drive tangible value early and quickly than ever before. Generative AI systems, so the newer generation of AI, they're non-deterministic, working with probabilities at their end, and they are just extremely good working with big unstructured data pools. So a lot of data qualities aim to get from unstructured data to clean and structured data. And the good news here basically is agentic AI is not only relevant for the process that comes after this data is cleansed, it can support you crazy well on the journey to get there. And very often the threshold that is really needed to apply a certain AI solution is way lower than people expect it to be.
If you look at this application, before we go to some cases right after this, you have a modular approach to apply these kind of solutions. So what is the return on investment, or the payback period of all these kind of solutions? Is it different, or is it similar?
It should be faster. Our core DNA is, and also like independent from us, I think customers deserve a fast ROI. They shouldn't be caught up in 3-year-long initiatives to replace their core TMS system or something. This is also not how, in my understanding and how we build our solutions, opinionated, the world works anymore. People want fast ROI, easy plug-in solutions that complement well, less lock-in, so you don't necessarily want to buy everything from one company, but you want to have an easy best-of-breed approach. You want to combine those solutions while it's still relevant that you have the peace of mind. If you are convinced we're the best partner for spot procurement, of course we're happy and convinced we're also the best choice for market intelligence, but it needs to be a conscious choice. Also, these old, like big scale subscriptions of I pay X amount of money, big sum, to a certain vendor as a fixed block, that is not how our P&Ls want to operate in the year 2026. Basically, you want an approach that is closer to pay as you go, right? The moment you get the benefit from having high efficiency from buying a spot transport, you pay for it. If you don't have it, you don't pay for it. And this is the core DNA of all our product portfolio. And also linking this to AI, again, zooming out and away from purely us, the agentic AI world and bringing different kind of solutions together, there is a good path for modular solutions being superior and better in solving a use case, building that use case just on the fly, versus having this big black hole of one solution portfolio that will just not interact and work well. It also gives this granularity to connect it in and be quick.
So maybe to explain, you know, the payback, you can use this in the next use case by Fiverr to explain what you have done there.
Yeah, that's a really awesome case. So Fiverr is a company, awesome wood company, operating very international with a ton of FTLs per day. Good partner for us. They had bid collection, so what I referred to earlier as the traditional way of buying spot freights. And they were doing that with us for many, many years. And just basically mid 2025, together we embarked on a journey to fully automate, or to a very high level automate their spot procurement journey as part of this. And what we saw is, based on those manual bid collections, we still had a rather high level of manual inefficiency, so rather high efforts for women and manpower for individual spot loads. We were tied to people being available, and we couldn't easily onboard additional capacities from the market. So we saw those bottlenecks, and very often we couldn't just very well compare and drive those bids against the underlying market reality. Like, this is where we started. And then in September last year, so again, like, we're talking about this now 7-9 months later, but it's still an awesome case because it still adds the value that it was there. But a few months later, we had all the volumes switched over to an autonomous process. And very, very important, an autonomous process deserves the manual intervention that a company wants to have. Because what we very often see is, like, going for the full automation, the 100%, sometimes just doesn't pay off, because we have too crazy edge cases by just putting them into a system that just wouldn't be worthwhile. Or there might even be cases where it's just still superior. And we want to offer our customers that flexibility to really go for it. Nevertheless, if we look at the numbers that we got to, we received the 84% automation rate. That means 84 out of 100 transports are now fully procured automatically on the spot market. And those 16% other cases, they are just not fully automated end to end. From an automation level, of course, also those are more superior now. The obvious efforts are like reduced manual efforts, better market-driven allocation, but also on the carrier side. You secure a load. You don't need to wait 4 hours and block potential capacity by syncing. You might win a load, but you have the certainty immediately. And it also offers the opportunities that you can have more carriers in your pool, because with this willingness of quoting on more shipments, vice versa, you also get a higher level of certainty. So it's also part of our webinar. It's called Smarter Freight from Procurement to Proof of Delivery. Our note here is, like, you deserve the best spot buying, the best contract buying process in the world. And this is, the moment you buy, the moment you pay for that transport, and that's the approach that we applied. And this was a great showcase.
You mentioned the 84 automation rate. I wrote a blog, I think last month, about the 80-20 rule of AI. Basically 80% you can automate, but with AI, and the last 20% is still human in the loop. And I think that's still valid. And it's also maybe confirmed with this, and maybe the Pareto rule applies in all kinds of things, because it also applies 80% is lanes and 20% is spot market. Is that also something that you see more and more often when you look around, the 80-20 rule in your environment regarding AI?
It happens, and typically you focus on this 80% first. Another topic here is that clearly for those cases, we're still touching physical things. Our product in logistics is something physical. So this is not a digital first product. Things can happen. You might want to apply a check. You might want to go down to your yard and check what's actually ongoing with that truck or with that asset. So that is a very, very relevant piece. And that also very often stops this connection between the digital and the physical world. It's just a good counterpart to have the automation end, because you want the certainty. Also, what we also have to be aware, failures in our industry, like, margins are thin, but failures in our industry are very, very expensive. Sometimes this is just a safety measure to have a second pair of eyes, in that sense, looking over the machine result and then confirming it, because you better be certain if you have very specific time, asset requirements, that they are 100% fulfilled. So very often this is just a last safety measure to ensure no expensive mistake is being made.
And also, with this kind of environment, you can have a better analysis of what's happening in the market, in your environment. Is it easy to get a spot rate or not? And you know, kind of risk assessment of in what kind of environment am I planning transportation? I think that will also help in this kind of environment, probably for Fiverr. So a better analysis of the market for transportation for their sake.
Yeah, and you still want to have some expertise. I mentioned this, making your decision criteria explicit. That still matters. You want to be the driver of your procurement process. And the key thing here to us, and I think it should be to all AI solutions, is observability. Observability in the sense of understandable AI. You should always know why a certain decision was taken in an automated process in exactly that way, because that helps driving you the insight. When I mentioned we aim to have explicit optimization criteria documented by our customers, we always match this with recommendations that we get from the market. So if we see a situation of like, don't know, better secure a contract rate now versus spot, we would always mention this, but we would leave it open to our customers whether they want the second step to action upon this fully automated, or whether they still want to keep the human in the loop for that process. And I think that optionality is very, very important to drive the adoptions, because yeah, people deserve choice in that
matter. Yeah. And I think that's an important message, you know, that most of the time AI agents will give recommendations, and you can still, you know, accept them or not. And if you accept them 80% out of 100, you may say, okay, these ones I will accept automatically, and the other ones I will still have to approve manually. And that's a good point to say, you know, to take out, you know, the scary feeling about AI, because it's getting through your hands without touching it and without overseeing this stuff.
Yes, next to helps the adoption.
Yeah. And maybe in the next case about Nestle, what is more important to mention here? What is striking you here?
Yes, so we also have autonomous procurement in the game here, but it also should showcase a totally different scenario. Very often we assume, like, yes, you buy technology, but you never buy technology for the sake of buying technology. You buy technology to help you solving a problem or driving value in your organization. And very often that is just best achieved by working alongside each other. And in the case of Nestle, that was a big supply chain transformation that we started out together already in 2018. So time passes quite quickly. That's quite a while ago already. But then the starting point for what I would flag now as one of the most mature and technologically driven logistics organizations that I'm aware of. But this started out in 2018 with decentralized operations, manual efficiencies, a little bit intransparency, very little visibility across the global logistics team of what is actually going on in their network. So that was not a perfect starting point, but then strong colleagues, strong processes, combined with strong solutions, made a crazy big change initiative happening that very quickly proved value across every year since 2018, where step by step we moved away from those silos over to centralized, digitalized processes. We extended and enhanced the service level significantly, both internally but also to the customers of Nestle. It was complemented by establishing a centralized hub logic that gave them all the transparency. And for now, we have a very, very high cost predictability, very, very high level of automation, but also a very, very high level of resilience that organization has. So while for Fiverr, it's more like selecting a point solution, executing upon that very well, the case here that I want to make is like, you can step by step, if it is part of a bigger supply chain transformation story, you can drive that benefit across every piece of this, and you don't have to wait. And this is also what was impressive here, that a company of that sheer size managed this consistently over the years and keeps pushing the limits.
So what strikes me here, you know, on the right hand side, you see the solution box and visibility, transport assignment, time slot management, autonomous procurement. I think, you have to create a roadmap to apply all this. You don't do this in a big bang. You roll it out per country, per functionality. Is there also a rule of thumb where to start? Is it starting by visibility from left to right and then end up with autonomous procurement? So what is your take how to approach this? Or is it depending on sort of company and your maturity?
It's not about the company's maturity. It's more like, where do you expect to get the biggest benefit quickly? From a modular logic perspective, it just makes sense to focus on the area that helps you most. If you have a production facility with very, very long turnaround times for your truck, just start with time slot management. You can onboard the other solutions quickly. But then you might want to factor in visibility, because you can just improve the turnarounds better by managing the arrivals better. Other example, if you're really struggling in managing your outbound transports from a certain facility, you have issues with the spot loads not being picked up, with carrier rejections, like start with transport assignment and just see that you get your transports out. If your biggest problem is inefficiencies in buying it, just pick autonomous procurement. So just go where the perceived relative value that you get is biggest, and just have the peace of mind that you can always add the other boxes whenever you want to.
Quite clear. Let's move over to the AI age, and maybe you can, introduce what you're thinking about this new AI age.
Yes. So if we think about the AI age, and we tackled upon some of those areas already, what do I see really relevant from how to win in that AI age, say, when it comes to transportation management? We talked a lot about the modular solution already and the advantages that those carry. Also very important for a modular approach is you don't benefit a lot from modularity if you don't have the optionality of basically just paying for something whenever you need it and whenever you use it. So just being modular alone is not enough. But then modularity helps to get to ROI quickly, to basically earn back that directly in your operational expenses without any without any relevant investment need. So that's a big piece. The second piece, and that continues to be a very, very important advantage in the AI age, again, transportation, multiplayer game. We interact with many, many parties alongside our transportation journey. Choose your partners that give you great connectivity with your networks and the other people that you want to interact with, because that really drives efficiency. Here, all the studies shows that companies are typically very well in automating and getting to high efficiencies for the processes that they own 100% by themselves. For transportation, you need to incorporate third parties and external factors. So 1/3 of the inefficiencies that occur across all transportation happen between companies and not in between companies. And this is where connectivity puts in. Another topic, while I stated, of course, you don't always have to aim for 100% automation. Of course, you need to aim for automation first with an intelligent system. You just don't want the system that just supports you by default. You want the system that gets the job done and involves you in the AI age whenever the risk, ambiguity, or other external factors required to come to the best decision are relevant. So just be aware of that when you choose how to configure your supply chain technology. Yeah, and then the last thing is the same: use what you need and pay what you use. So aim to always have value attribution when you consume something.
One question about this, about the middle part, the connectedness. Do you think it's now way more easier to connect your carriers, your trucks, etc., also third party, compared to 5 years ago? So that makes it more easier to connect with all those? Is it also helping in this AI age?
The connectivity part got significantly easier. What has stayed rather the same compared to 5 years ago is the system of action component associated. So the technical connectivity is easier than ever before. What still is important, you not only want the systems to be connected, but you also want to have your way of operating connected together, so that the moment that you have a transport, that you get a quick reaction and that this is incorporated into the behavior of your partner. And that continues to be hard, where network curation, looking into those data quality components, updating those connectivity topics, reminding automatically when interactions are not happening, they still play a significant role. So really duality here. Technically way easier, organizationally didn't change that much.
So Transporeon did a survey last year about the application of AI, both on the cargo owners and the carrier side. Let's dig into this data. Maybe you can explain what their take was on the cargo owner side of the use of AI in transportation.
Yeah, so for context, every year for both shippers and carriers, we run a big study. We call it the pulse study with the selected topics that drive the industry right now. And not too much of a big surprise, AI was the dominant theme for our study that we did in Q3 last year in preparation of our main event, the Insight event. And what we found here was like rather interesting. Maybe one disclaimer up front here, we didn't differentiate between the types of AI. On the highest level, I would still separate the machine learning, statistical and mathematical AI. That is with us for more than 10 years now. And the other part is the newer part, the generative AI, the large language model driven part of the AI. We didn't differentiate here. And that makes a hell of a lot of difference when looking also how should we interpret those scenarios. Because, for example, transport planning and optimization, this sees a very high usage of AI. Same for, I'll skip one, real-time visibility or execution and carrier assignment. So a lot of the use cases that are rather optimization driven, were basically based on big data sets or good information. You have machine learning processes automated. Those we see a rather good contribution of having AI included into the day-to-day processes. What was very interesting to see is that still route planning and optimization still seems to have a big opportunity. And then if we even look further down, dock and yard management from a preparation, time slot booking perspective is very, very well served. But what it made to me, the result of this study is, it made me think about, okay, dock and yard, these are processes that heavily interact with physical workflows as well. How can we find a way that all those change cases that are not that easy to be reflected in the system can also be supported with AI? So that was clearly underserved. Similar thing for freight settlement and audit. The moment that invoice matches the agreed rate, it's all good and highly automated. But then the moment we need to contact the carrier and state like, hey, you quoted us 200 and you charge 250 now, explain yourself, it gets very, very manual. And that also it just showcases the potential map of where AI can still help us to make transportation more efficient.
But I think, especially the freight settlement and audit, that's the area I would expect to have use AI gain, especially Gen AI gain, going through all this invoices and scrape it and analyze it and then compare to your tenders and your offering. I think there's what I think most to gain if you look at these bars.
Yeah. Also, if we zoom out, what are the global top use cases for generative AI right now? There is clearly like software development and code creation as one big thing. That's not the pure logistics things, but it influences us. And then there is customer service, or everything that is close to customer service and support processes. And Martin, this is exactly where freight settlement and audit fits in if we zoom out of the logistics world. At the end of the day, this is where we do follow-ups, where we arrange processes that serve exactly this. So that should also open up the potential for applying some AI solutions there.
Yeah, indeed. I can imagine that a financial controller of a cargo owner at a shipper company are not totally aware, of all the the extra costs from freight, etc. And that would help this financial controller to see, okay, we have these invoices and they were unexpected or different than we expected, etc. So I think that the financial part of a company receiving freight invoices could have a lot of use using Gen AI to make sense of it and to follow up and maybe to automate it to some extent.
Yeah, and it also closes the loop here, like having good data about the amounts that you actually paid and also the exceptions, what other charges applied during the way. That's again like in a data and closing the loop and reinforced learning scenario. That's the input for your next strategic and tactical decisions in how to procure, how to organize your logistics chain. So it also helps closing the loop.
And if you could briefly discuss also the results on the carrier side.
Yeah, an interesting piece here is that pricing and lane optimization gets such a high number. So here AI seems to be in there. That was really interesting in my regard, because I thought, yeah, but pricing, also coming from a 3PL background, pricing is still so manual. Yes, we get a lot of support and maybe we get better data analytics, but at the end of the day, it feels unsolved. So that really, to some extent, surprised me, that outcome as well. What surprised me less was real-time visibility, ETA, because yeah, high adoption of those solutions. The same is true for optimizing driver schedules and routes. So that was all on the highest end. Here, maybe also if we switch to the bottom, asset maintenance surprised me, because yeah, like your truck, your asset is the third most expensive item that you have after the driver and the energy that you consume. That AI solutions are very little applied in there, where so many vendors have called in the period of predictive maintenance. Was really interesting.
And if you look at the challenges also from both sides.
Yeah, interesting piece here is data quality. And the data quality continues to be a big discussion item when it comes to AI solutions. Like, should you focus on data quality first? Is this something that you can build up on the fly? And data quality carries many different components, where most likely the gap that people see is really making the right information available in the first place. It might not be that much about what the quality of that is. And that's also, if I think about best practices on applying AI solutions, it's really about think about making data accessible first, and the quality, the strictly quality part of it second, because the moment you have access to data, LLMs and generative AI is just exceptionally good in, don't know, screening through millions of emails, screening through millions of pages that you gave it access to, and it can reason very, very well based on this. So the data piece is really interesting and the key to win in the Gen AI world.
And if you look at it right, the cybersecurity on the shipper side, that's remarkable, but probably understandable.
I hope it's understandable. The cybersecurity threat, I keep stating this, it's real. We see more and more attacks. Logistics serve the world, serve the physical world, and they are a relevant part of our infrastructure. So cybersecurity risks have significantly exploded over the last years, and generative AI solutions have this specialty, mentioned this before, they're non-deterministic. That means you can't always secure that one input leads to the same output without applying very, very strict guardrails and good AI safety features. So I think for the new type of solutions that we create right now, it's more than fair and understandable that customers ask for the quality of AI safety that you can provide as a vendor.
And maybe you can wrap up, and summarize the pros and cons of AI in transportation.
Yes. So where are we right now? We see a majority of three different kind of solutions. We see the general models from Anthropic, from OpenAI. They're crazy innovative, bring a broad range of use cases. So that's clearly the upside. The downside is very often they only have the generic result and are not very well incorporated into this. Plus, the two biggest companies in the field give you access to your model or this one model only and give very little optionality for that. What has been pushed more from the logtech vendor side, where specific agents. We haven't been that loud with that, while we have big capabilities there. So the planner agent, the procurement agent, the whatever agent, but basically solving a specific domain knowledge directly in the product. So that was there. They solve a purpose, but they're still often rather fragmented. And then there is the build your own automation path by buying automation solutions and then applying it to your very specific use cases. The downside here clearly is like, while this is closest to what you want, it also carries the largest effort and the highest relative for that.
And in the right side, you used to have RPA, robotic process automation, on the right hand side, and that's hard to scale. So that's also
yes,
downside.
Specifically in the old world, the RPA solutions, they only offered a relative limited amount of flexibility, and now the LLM world is helping here, but it's not helping with the scaling.
Yeah. The AI age is here, so maybe you can wrap up to
yes.
finalizing of your
so
survey.
We have very good solutions in all the three pillars that I described before, but what we still see is a lack of companies that get value from AI at scale. It only stands at 5 to 6% of companies really being in that pillar. Only 13% of employees say that the AI that they get access to from their companies really deeply integrated into their workflows. And still, overall, on an average, 2/3 of the companies haven't really found their AI use cases that they adopt at scale yet. So what that states is still a ton of potential in there, where the model capability is very, very high, but we face an adoption gap.
So what is your overall take on agentic AI?
Yeah, where do we think that this will go? And we will also reflect this in our product future, but it is a general consistency. We will see going away from these narrow agents that solve a specific use case very, very well, to having great solutions coming from single, safe, and powerful agents that, via skills, give you a great optionality to have your solutions brought together. So they will work alongside your transportation team. They'll be safe, reliable, secure, but they will just help you with bringing all your different solutions together and act as your central hub to solve your problems and to orchestrate your agentic AI workflows. This is the direction that we see, moving away from narrow agents to broad agents with many skills. And this is most likely an interesting area for everyone to deeper and to have a follow-up.
What I see myself when I talk to companies, they use this kind of company portfolio of their IT landscape to visualize it, and also to mark down which modules, which environment are the most prone to use AI agents. Have a certain goal for an AI agent, who might be in transport management or yard management. Also to mark down in which order they want to apply AI agents, and that's my take on this. So when they have visualized this kind of company IT portfolio from the supplier side up to the consumer side, and all in between, and from the lower ERP environment, which is data lake probably, and then your stack with all kind of applications on top of that, where do you find the use cases of an AI agent? What kind of manual process you have to go through every week, every month, and where you can apply an AI agent? So that's what I see now. Companies using this template we have created last year, download it, apply it themselves, and take a roadmap out of it. And this is my conceptual visualization. What Gartner was coining early this year, an SCM command center. I had an interview with Christian Tietze, the analyst of Gartner in Europe, about this, and basically this is what he was seeing, and I also confirm with that. You see, usually you have your warehouse management, your transport management, and your order management, and on top of that you need to connect with your ERP back office, and maybe to have a data warehouse to go through it and connect it in operational data, and on top of that, when you are there, you have a real command center to have a cross-functional, not the silos anymore. Bernard, do you see this happening now more and more?
Yes, we see this happening on multi-layers, and this is exactly the tendency to bring the agents together. They're the glue between those individual pillars And the glue is a key driver of inefficiency. And if we get to the better command center structures as they're in there, I'm for sure we'll be able to provide us a good next wave of having better quality and better automated supply chain solutions.
So I asked a lot of questions, and I got some questions previously, from the audience. So that's why I asked them directly through me. So we're running out of time. So, but if you still want to sit down with Bernard and me right after this, we'll be still available in the next 30 minutes or so in the virtual lounge. So you can sit down at table 1 and have a conversation with us. To wrap up, so you can download your company IT portfolio to fill out yourself. You can create your own Tetris landscape of your own IT environment. There's more to download from Trimble, a white paper. Also, there's the survey from last year has been available since a few months, and they are working on the next this year's survey for this year. I'm looking forward to get that. And basically they will present this year's survey of transportation, probably with a lot of AI, at their own event in September in Brussels. So that's in September. So there will be the presentation probably of your current survey, isn't it, Bernard?
Yes, correct. We update this every year, and I would be very happy to meet many of you in Brussels this September. We always make the participation count, so it would be great. Okay.
All right. For the audience, thank you for listening in, either live or the recording. So that's good to see the huge interest, and hopefully you learned a lot about how to apply AI in the transportation environment, either on the carrier side or on the cargo owner side. So thanks for listening in. And Bernard, thank you for this clear explanation.
Thank you very much for having me. It was really great to have this conversation, Martin. Hope it gives some value to the audience.
It will, and we'll write an article about it to make more sense out of it. I would say, thanks for now, and maybe I see you later right after this in the virtual lounge. If not, I will have a webinar about the IT supply map and the company IT portfolio next week. I will explain how to select the supply chain software in the age of AI. Thanks for now, and bye-bye.